You never think it will happen to you. You hear stories about marriages falling apart, but when you have been with someone for over 2 decades, you believe you are different. I thought Sarah and I were unbreakable. But let me tell you, life has a way of shattering your illusions when you least expect it. We were high school sweethearts. I still remember the first time I saw her standing by her locker, laughing with her friends. There was something about her, this warmth, this light that drew me in. I was not the only one who noticed her, but for some reason, she noticed me too. We were just kids, but it felt like we had found something rare, something that would last forever. After graduation, we went to different colleges, but we made it work. We were determined. We spent countless nights on the phone talking about everything and nothing just to feel close. Every weekend I would drive hours just to see her for a day. It was exhausting, but I did not care. When you are that in love, nothing else matters. We got married at 24, right after we both finished school. We did not have much, just a small apartment and our first jobs, but we had each other and that was enough. We talked about our dreams, our plans for the future. We wanted a house, kids, and maybe a dog. We were going to build a life together, brick by brick, and I was all in. And we did. We got our first house a few years later. It was not much, just a small place in a quiet neighborhood, but it was ours. So I remember how excited we were to move in. We spent our first night there on a mattress in the living room because the bed had not been delivered yet. We ordered takeout, drank cheap wine, and talked about how this was just the beginning. It felt like we were on top of the world. Then came the girls. First Emma, then a couple of years later, Sophie, and finally, little Grace. Those were the happiest years of my life. Watching Sarah become a mother was incredible. She had this natural grace with the girls, this endless patience. I always knew she would be a great mom, but seeing it in action was something else. I tried to be the best dad I could, too. We were a team, balancing work, parenting, and everything in between. We were not perfect. We had our arguments, our stresses, like any couple, but through it all, I never doubted that we were solid. We made time for each other, for date nights and little getaways when we could. We had our routines, our traditions. Every Friday night was movie night with the girls. Sunday mornings, we would go out for breakfast at our favorite diner. It was not always exciting, but it was ours and it was good. Looking back, it feels like another life. I guess, in a way, it was. A life I thought would last forever. We were a family, and I was proud of what we had built. I thought we had it all, a loving marriage, 3 beautiful daughters, and a future full of promise. But the thing about life is, it can change in an instant, and when it does, you find yourself questioning everything you thought you knew. So yeah, that is how it all started, with a love story that I believe was unbreakable. But as you will see, even the strongest foundations can crack, and sometimes they can shatter completely. It was just an ordinary Tuesday. I had come home from work exhausted, ready to settle into our usual evening routine. The girls were upstairs doing their homework, and Sarah was in the kitchen like she always was around that time. I remember walking in and smelling dinner on the stove. It was one of those small comforts, you know, the kind of thing you take for granted until it is gone. But that night, something was off. Sarah was not humming to herself like she usually did. She was quiet. Too quiet. I walked over to her and she barely looked at me. I asked if everything was okay and she just nodded, avoiding eye contact. It was weird, but I figured she had a rough day, so I let it go. After dinner, she went upstairs without a word, leaving me to clean up. Again, strange, but not totally out of character. We all have our off days, right? I did not think much of it until later when I heard her moving around in our bedroom. The sound of drawers opening and closing like she was packing. I walked in, confused. "What are you doing?" I asked her. Still not even close to realizing what was coming. She did not answer at first, just kept stuffing clothes into a suitcase. When she finally did look at me, her eyes were red, like she had been crying, but there was something else there too. Determination, maybe even fear. "I need to go," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I laughed, thinking it was some kind of joke. "Go where?" I asked. But she was not joking. She did not even try to explain. She just kept packing, moving like she was on autopilot, like if she stopped, she might change her mind. My heart started racing. "Sarah, talk to me." What is going on? I could hear the panic creeping into my voice, but I was too stunned to care. She still would not answer me, just shook her head and zipped up the suitcase. That was when it hit me. She was really leaving. But why? What had I missed? We were fine, or at least I thought we were. I tried to think back to the last few weeks, months even, looking for signs, but nothing made sense. Is this about us? Did I do something? I was practically pleading at this point, desperate to understand. But she just grabbed her things and brushed past me, heading for the door. I followed her, my mind racing, trying to figure out how to stop her, how to fix whatever was broken. But she was already gone, out the door without so much as a goodbye. I stood there in the doorway, watching her drive away. It was surreal, like I was stuck in some bad dream I could not wake up from. I kept thinking she would come back, that she would realize this was all some huge mistake. But she did not. She was gone. The girls came downstairs after hearing the commotion. Emma, our oldest, asked where Mom was going. I had no idea what to tell them. How do you explain something like that? I just told them she needed some time, that she would be back soon. I did not believe it myself, but I did not know what else to say. How do you tell your kids that their mom just walked out without a reason, without any explanation? That night, after I put the girls to bed, I sat in our room surrounded by the emptiness she had left behind. Her side of the closet was half empty, her toiletries gone from the bathroom. It felt like a bomb had gone off and I was standing in the wreckage, trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. I did not sleep at all that night. I kept replaying the scene in my head over and over, trying to make sense of it. But no matter how many times I went through it, I could not find an answer. I was just left with this deep, gnawing fear that nothing was ever going to be the same again. The days after Sarah left were a blur. I was in a daze, just going through the motions. I would get the girls ready for school, go to work, come home, and try to keep everything together. But inside, I was falling apart. I kept texting her, calling her, trying to get some kind of explanation, but she never responded. It was like she had just erased herself from our lives. I was desperate for answers, so I finally reached out to her parents. They were the only connection I had left to her. I remember the conversation with her dad like it was yesterday. I called him one night after I put the girls to bed. My voice was shaking and I could barely get the words out, but I asked him if he knew where Sarah was. There was a long pause on the other end, then he sighed, and I knew he was about to tell me something I did not want to hear. "She's with us," he said quietly. "But John, there's something you need to know." My heart dropped. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding the phone so tight my knuckles were white. "What is it?" I managed to ask, even though I was terrified of the answer. And then he told me. He told me that Sarah had been seeing someone else for years. Not just a fling, but a full-blown affair. It felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. I just sat there, stunned, while he explained that the man she had been seeing had died recently, some kind of sudden heart attack. That was why she left. She could not handle the grief, the guilt, the mess she had made. I was speechless. How could this have been happening right under my nose and I had no idea? My mind was racing, trying to piece together every moment of the past few years, looking for signs, for clues. I had always trusted her completely, never questioned where she was or who she was with. We were supposed to be solid, unbreakable, and yet here was this massive betrayal staring me in the face. I felt like an idiot. How could I have been so blind, so trusting? I wanted to scream, to break something, but all I could do was sit there numb while her dad kept talking. He told me how sorry he was, how they had just found out themselves. They were as shocked as I was, but that did not make me feel any better. After I hung up, I just sat in the dark for what felt like hours, trying to process what I had just learned. I felt like my entire life was a lie, like the woman I had loved for so long was a stranger. Every memory, every moment we had shared was now tainted by this secret she had been keeping. The next day, I could barely look at the girls. How was I supposed to tell them? How could I explain that their mom had been living a double life? I decided to keep it to myself for now. They were already hurting so much, and I did not want to add to their pain. But keeping it inside was like carrying a boulder around on my chest. That night, after the girls went to bed, I went into our room and started going through her things. I was looking for, I do not know, proof maybe, or something that would help me understand how long this had been going on. I found an old phone of hers in the back of a drawer. I knew I should not have, but I turned it on and started scrolling through it. That was when I saw the messages. Hundreds of them. Some recent, some from years ago. It was all there. The flirting, the plans to meet up, the lies she had told me to cover her tracks. It was like a punch to the gut over and over again. I read through them, getting angrier and more hurt with every word. There were messages from when she was supposed to be at work or out with friends, but instead, she was with him. All those nights she came home late, all the time she seemed distracted or distant, it all made sense now. But it did not make it any easier to accept. I do not know how long I sat there staring at that screen, but by the time I finally put the phone down, I was shaking. It felt like my whole world had been blown apart, and I did not know how to put the pieces back together. All I knew was that the woman I thought I knew, the woman I had built my life with, was gone, and in her place was a stranger I did not recognize. That was the moment when everything changed for me. There was no going back, no fixing this. The truth was out, and there was no way to unsee it, no way to forget what I had learned. All I could do was figure out how to survive it. After finding out the truth, it was like my entire world had crumbled around me, and I was left standing in the wreckage, trying to figure out how to keep going. I had no idea how to move forward, how to get through each day. I was angry, devastated, and completely lost. It felt like I was drowning, and there was no one around to pull me out. The first few days after I uncovered everything were the hardest. I could not eat. I could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see were those messages, those lies. I kept replaying every moment in my head, wondering how I missed it, how I could have been so blind. It was like this constant loop of pain, and I had no idea how to make it stop. The girls could tell something was wrong. They were confused, scared. They kept asking about their mom, why she was not home, when she would be back. I did my best to keep it together for them, to put on a brave face, but inside I was falling apart. I would drop them off at school, go to work, and just go through the motions, but my mind was somewhere else, stuck in this nightmare that I could not wake up from. I remember one day at work, I just broke down. I was sitting at my desk, staring at my computer screen, and all of a sudden it just hit me. This wave of overwhelming sadness. I could not hold it in anymore. I got up and went to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and just cried. I felt so helpless, so alone. I did not know how I was supposed to keep going, how I was supposed to be there for my kids when I could barely function myself. At night, after the girls were in bed, it was the worst. The silence in the house was deafening. I would lie in bed staring at the ceiling and feel this emptiness, this cold void where Sarah used to be. The bed felt too big, too empty. I kept expecting her to walk through the door to tell me it was all some horrible mistake, but she never did. She was gone, and I had to find a way to live with that. I tried to keep busy to distract myself from the pain. I threw myself into work, into taking care of the girls, into anything that would keep me from thinking about what had happened. But no matter what I did, the pain was always there, lurking in the background, ready to hit me when I least expected it. There were times when I thought about reaching out to her, asking her to come back, to fix what she had broken. But then I would remember those messages, the lies, the betrayal, and the anger would come rushing back. How could she do this to us, to our family? How could she just walk away like none of it mattered? The hardest part was trying to keep it together for the girls. They needed me, and I could not let them see how broken I was. I had to be strong for them, even though I felt anything but. Every day was a struggle, a battle just to get through it without falling apart. And then there were the nights when I could not sleep. I would lie in bed staring at the empty space next to me and feel this crushing loneliness. It was like a weight on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I would get up, pace around the house, hoping the exhaustion would eventually knock me out. But it never did. The nights were the worst. That was when the reality of it all would hit me the hardest, when I realized that this was my life now, that she was not coming back, and that I had to figure out how to live with that. I started going to therapy, thinking maybe it would help. I needed to talk to someone to try and make sense of everything. It was hard at first, opening up, talking about all the pain, but eventually it started to help. It was not a quick fix. Nothing was. But it was something. It gave me a place to unload, to cry, to rage, without having to worry about being strong for anyone else. But even with therapy, with the support of friends and family, it was still so damn hard. Every day was a struggle, a battle to keep going, to get out of bed, to take care of my kids, to pretend like everything was okay when it was not. It felt like I was walking around in a fog, just trying to survive, just trying to get through the day. And the thing was, I knew this was not something I could just fix. There was no going back, no undoing what had been done. I had to live with it, had to find a way to move forward, even though I had no idea how. Looking back, I am not sure how I made it through those days, those weeks. It was like I was on autopilot, just doing what I had to do to survive. But somehow I did. Somehow I kept going, even though there were times when I did not think I could. And maybe that is what got me through. Just taking it one day at a time, one step at a time, and not giving up, no matter how much it hurt. After weeks of living in that fog, I reached a point where I knew I could not keep going like that. The girls deserved better, and honestly, so did I. I needed answers, something to help me move on, or at least try to. So I decided to confront Sarah. I had been avoiding it, afraid of what she might say, but the not knowing was eating me alive. One night after I had put the girls to bed, I called her. I was not even sure she would pick up, but she did. The sound of her voice after everything that had happened hit me like a punch to the gut. I almost hung up, but I knew I could not. I had to do this. Sarah, I started, trying to keep my voice steady. We need to talk. There was a long silence on the other end, but I could hear her breathing, could feel the tension through the phone. I know, she finally said, her voice soft, almost apologetic. I owe you an explanation. Damn right you do, I snapped, the anger I'd been holding back finally bubbling to the surface. How could you just walk away like that? How could you do this to us? To the girls? She sighed, and I could tell she was struggling to find the right words. John, I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted it to end like this. But after he died, I could not handle it. The guilt, the shame. It was too much. Guilt? I shot back, my voice shaking with rage. You feel guilty? What about me? What about our family? You destroyed everything, Sarah. Everything. There was another long pause, and I could hear her crying on the other end. For a moment, I felt a pang of sympathy, but it was quickly drowned out by the anger and hurt. I wanted her to feel the pain she had caused, to understand the devastation she had left behind. I know, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I know I did, and I'm so sorry, John. I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not even deserve it. But I need you to know that I never stopped loving you, not for a second. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I had no idea how to respond to that. How could she claim to still love me after everything she had done? It felt like some cruel joke, like she was trying to rewrite the past to make herself feel better. Love? I said bitterly. Do not talk to me about love, Sarah. You do not get to say that, not after what you did. She was silent, and I could hear her sniffling, trying to pull herself together. I know, she said finally, but it is the truth whether you believe it or not, and I am sorry, John. I really am. But I cannot come back. I have to figure out who I am on my own. I need to find a way to live with what I have done. I felt like I was about to explode. And what about the girls? What about us? Do we just not matter anymore? You matter, she insisted, her voice breaking. You matter more than anything. That is why I left, John. I was not good for you, for them. I was broken, and I did not want to drag you all down with me. I could not take it anymore. I hung up, cutting off whatever else she had to say. I sat there for a long time staring at the phone, feeling this mix of anger, sadness, and something else. Something I could not quite name. Maybe it was relief, or maybe it was just exhaustion. But whatever it was, I knew I was done. I could not keep chasing after answers that would never make sense, after a closure that would never come. In the end, all I had were her words and the knowledge that she was not coming back. It was not the resolution I had hoped for, but it was something. It was an end, even if it was not the one I wanted. And as much as it hurt, I knew I had to start letting go. I had to stop holding on to the hope that things could go back to the way they were. They could not. And maybe that was okay. Maybe that was just part of the process of moving forward. That night after the call, I sat in the dark thinking about everything she had said. I realized that as much as I hated her for what she had done, I could not let that hatred consume me. It was not about forgiving her. Not yet, maybe not ever. But it was about freeing myself from the grip of that anger and pain. I needed to do that, not just for me, but for the girls. They needed a father who was present, who was not trapped in the past. So I made a decision. I decided to start focusing on the future, on building something new for me and the girls. It would not be easy and it would take time, but I knew it was the only way forward. I could not change what had happened, but I could choose how to move on from it. And that was what I was going to do. After that call with Sarah, I knew things had to change. I could not keep living in that dark place, dragging the girls through it with me. It was not fair to them, and it was not fair to myself either. So I started making small steps toward healing, toward finding some kind of peace. The first thing I did was focus on the girls. They had been through so much already, and I knew they needed stability, something solid to hold on to. I made a point to be there for them, really be there. I took them to the park more, started cooking their favorite meals, and made bedtime a special time for us to talk and connect. I wanted them to feel safe, to know that no matter what, I was there for them. It was not easy at first. Every time I looked at them, I was reminded of Sarah and everything we had lost. But slowly, as the days turned into weeks, I started to find joy in those moments with them again. Their laughter became the highlight of my day, and I realized that as long as they were okay, I would be too. I also reached out to a few close friends. I had been isolating myself, trying to deal with everything on my own, but I realized that I could not do it alone. I needed support, someone to talk to, someone to remind me that I was not alone in this. My friends were amazing. They listened without judgment, offered advice when I needed it, and just made me feel like I was not going through this on my own. Work became another outlet for me. I threw myself into my projects, taking on new challenges and responsibilities. It was a way to keep my mind busy, to focus on something other than the pain. And in a way, it was therapeutic. The sense of accomplishment I got from my work helped rebuild my confidence, reminded me that I was capable, that I could still achieve things despite everything. But the real turning point came one weekend when I decided to take the girls on a little road trip, just the three of us. No plans, no expectations, just a chance to get away, to breathe some fresh air, and spend time together. We ended up driving to this small town by the coast, a place we had never been before. That weekend was like a breath of fresh air. We spent our days on the beach, building sandcastles, collecting seashells, and just enjoying each other's company. The girls were so happy, so carefree, and it was contagious. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. The weight that had been crushing me for so long started to lift, and I realized that maybe, just maybe, I was going to be okay. One night, after the girls had fallen asleep, I sat out on the balcony of our little hotel room listening to the waves crash against the shore. It was peaceful, almost surreal. I thought about everything that had happened, about Sarah, about the pain and the betrayal. But instead of the anger and sadness that usually came with those thoughts, I felt something different. I felt acceptance. I realized that I could not change the past, could not undo what had happened, but I could choose how to move forward. I could choose to let go of the anger, the resentment, and focus on the good things in my life, the girls, my work, the friends who had stood by me. I could choose to find happiness again, to rebuild, to create a new life for us. And that is what I decided to do. I made a promise to myself, sitting there under the stars, that I would not let what happened define me. I would not let it hold me back. I would take each day as it came, focus on the things that mattered, and slowly, step by step, I would heal. When we got back home, I felt different, lighter somehow. I started making more plans with the girls, creating new traditions for just the three of us. We started having movie nights on Fridays, pancake breakfasts on Sundays, and those little rituals became the foundation of our new life together. It was not perfect, and there were still hard days, but we were moving forward, and that was enough. Over time, I even started to forgive Sarah, not for her sake, but for mine. I needed to let go of that anger, that bitterness, to truly move on. I could not keep carrying that weight around with me. It was not easy, and it did not happen overnight, but eventually I found a way to forgive her, to make peace with what had happened. I do not know what the future holds for us, but I do know that we are going to be okay. We are stronger than we were before, more resilient, and while I would never wish to go through something like that again, I am grateful for the lessons it taught me. For the strength I found within myself, for the love I discovered for my daughters, and for the hope that no matter how dark things get, there is always a way through.